Welcome everybody to Aspen Updates in an Instant for October of 2024. Let's get, let me share. Alrighty, great, we can see the release notes here. These are release notes for 2410. And just want to start off, as always, thanking all of the developers that have contributed this month. I believe this month there are 13 I counted from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different organizations, which is amazing. Thank you to everybody who has contributed. There, we'll see if we can get them there. That's everybody on one page. We're gonna have to reduce font size here soon to get them all on one page. Also, sponsored development from Colorado Library Consortium and San Luis Obispo County Library. So thank those libraries for contributing their development. With that, I will run down the top. I know Catherine has some stuff she wants to demo, and then if anybody else wants, if I miss anything and anybody wants to demo anything at the end, I will stop talking. So let's start off at the top. Also we did have a 240901, not a lot notable out of that. The most notable thing was Boundless changed how they were delivering languages. So Cody fixed the indexing there to say, hey, we're now getting a full word for the language, and we were getting just the short code, so we are getting English now instead of ENG. That was breaking some record grouping and other indexing, so Cody fixed that as part of 240901, so everybody using Boundless keeps getting that functionality. All right, let's look at, sorry, get my notes set. Let's look at administration updates. So one of the things we talked about last time was the ability to administer multiple accounts. So right now, Bugs Bunny can only administer, they are a library manager for Centerville. So let's, log out and log back in as Bugs. So we'll just show here that, whoop. So if we go to our library settings, we see right now Bugs can only do the main library. And I'll log back out, log in as my staff account. I'll go back into administration. And we're going to give Bugs Bunny the ability to update the kids collection. So, and the way this works is you're assigning a location that will then bubble up to a library or all of those permissions that are library specific. So if something is based off the library, it's going to be based off if you have permission to edit a location. Things that are location based do depend on the location. So we'll give Bugs the ability to do the kids collection in addition to Centerville. Let's log out and log back in. And now when we go to our library settings, we'll see we've got the ability to modify both the main library and the kids collection. So this is really cool, especially as we have more people doing kids collections and that kind of thing, or for staff that work at a couple of different libraries and need to manage them both. So we have that in a couple of different consortia. So Next thing I wanted to talk about, we've got some API updates that Kirsten did, and these are all in prep for getting self-registration working within Lita. So cool stuff there. Oh, and speaking of Lita, sorry, I could have mentioned Catherine did a lot to get sorting within checkouts within Lita. So good functionality there. As part of that self-registration, there's the ability to turn self-registration on or off. And Kirsten, correct me if I'm wrong, but that should stay off for now until next release when that is all finished.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Cool. Next thing we have is some materials request updates. We talked about this a little bit last time, saying that this was coming. So the idea here, I'm going to sign back in as my staff account. So the idea is we're able to place holds now on various materials requests, which is really cool. So patrons always want to be first in line for the material request that they purchased. So let's go down here. So I'm going to start by looking at the statuses. So I've created on my system 2 new statuses. So I created a hold failed and hold placed successfully. There's some new toggles that go along here. So basically we're indicating to Aspen which statuses to use. So we're saying hold is placed successfully or hold failed. And then you can update those to send an email to the patron and update the template. So here, when a hold is placed successfully, we're going to say, hey, the name of the title has been received by the library. You're added to the hold queue, and thanks for your purchase suggestion. That will then get emailed whenever this status is set. The other thing I did was I updated the item purchased status. So I changed the email template just to say, hey, we're purchasing it. We're going to place a hold for you. We checked this check for hold, and we made it open. So patrons can still watch them. You could leave it closed if you wanted, but it's just a little easier to manage if they're open. Those changes are not automatic for you if you've got materials requests, because we didn't want to force you into using holds. And people have customized these anyway. We don't want to disrupt people's systems. There is a note up at the top of the release note saying, hey, if you want to do those, these are the things you should do. So we do that. Then because we're ordering materials in Aspen that may or may not match the formats that we have that we're asking people for in materials requests, we need to do some format mapping. So we're going to map the Aspen catalog format to the materials request format. So here, for example, I've got books and reference materials. Both of those for the material request, I'm saying that those are books. You can click the update active formats to load everything from your system so that it will know everything that you have loaded, similar to what we had for format sorting last time. Okay, so once you've done that, I'm going to place a materials request to make it so that we don't have to sit and watch me catalog something in Koha and bring all that in from ILS. I'm going to do a materials request for something that we already have. So let's do this. That's Platonis Opera. So we're going to submit a new request. We're going to say this is Platonis Opera by Plato. We are checking the place a hold for me when the item is available. So if a patron says, no, don't do that, they're not going to, it's not going to say that, it's not going to try to place a hold for them. If the ISBN, UPC, or ISSN is filled out, then Aspen's going to search by those later. Otherwise, it's going to do a title author search to figure out when a material is in the catalog that fills that. So let's just submit that. All right, so now I've got materials request. This is my open one that we just submitted. There is a background process. It's going to run at 9 a.m. every morning. I'm going to run that now in the background. So what that's doing is it's going out, searching the catalog by title and author or by ISBN UPC to see if any hold requests now have materials that may or may not fulfill that. So it's checking those things as well as the format. If we go back to material requests, we're going to look at requests needing hold. Did I just type something there? Oh, there is an important step here. Not only does the request have to be entered, we have to actually say that we purchased it. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to update this request, say, so here we could fill in the ISBN and ISSN if we wanted. We're going to say that this has now been purchased. So now that that's purchased, it is now eligible to be checked for hold. I'm going to just assign it to myself as well. What assigning it to you will do is it will send you an email saying that, hey, you've got requests that are potentially ready for hold. So now we will run that script in the background to check for hold. Let's go back to our request needing hold. Here we go. So in this case, we have two hold candidates. So there's two different items that might fill this. So we can select our hold candidate. So in this case, we have record 203 and record 204 in Koha, so potentially different versions. We can click to view any of those. So we can say which one best fits what the patron wants, if they were wanting a special edition or something like that, or to get it from a special place. We can go through and pick and choose what they want. In this case, I'm just going to pick 203. So we're going to use that. So this is part of the reason that we have to select those. That gets updated. So we've selected that. We're then going to place a hold on either everything, or we can do it one at a time. So let's place a hold on that. It's going to go through then, in this case, go out to Koha or whatever the ILS is, and automatically update that. So we can see that in this case, there's none left. And if we go into our titles on hold, we can see we've got 3 things on hold now with the Platonis Opera. If I check my email, I've got emails saying, hey, this hold was placed for you and that kind of thing. So really cool functionality to be able to place hold for materials requests. So thank you to San Luis Obispo for sponsoring that functionality. Let's see. Yes, and that will work for all ILS systems. So it is just and does not work with materials requests placed. Well, it would not work for materials requests placed via Libby. But so anybody using the Aspen materials request systems, it will work. If a patron puts in the request through Aspen, but it is purchased from Libby, you will still be able to get a hold candidate for Libby or Hoopla or wherever you're purchasing that for, that the hold would then work. So, so whether that's Boundless or Libby, I guess Hoopla doesn't have hold, but I believe checking the title out would well, no, checking the title wouldn't work because we wouldn't want the library or the patron to have it automatically checked out for them. So, all right. Next on the list, unless there's any other questions. Okay. Looks like that's it. Going down, Aspen usage data. So Chloe at PTFS Europe made some updates here. So we've got new graphs and data tables for Access 360, the Aspen API, and side loads, which can also be downloaded. So here we've got some boundless usage that we can see from the dash. Well, I got to here from the dashboard. We can see all of those. So here's the dashboard. We can view that as a graph. And get rid of the API errors and connection failures. But then we can go through and at the bottom there, export to CSV if we wanted to. So cool functionality there. So I'm gonna, let's see. Let me talk. So we have what we call the greenhouse, which is kind of a back-end system. There wasn't a great place to put this next functionality, so I'm going to talk about it and kind of explain what it is and why it's there. This is kind of available only to the super admin. So for people hosting, it's your hosting company has access to it. If you're self-hosted, you would have access to it. So here we've got, so this is in the greenhouse, which just goes by a special name and URL that has to get typed in. What we have now is the ability to generate some historical data for testing. So the idea is, I'm going to click into this. So in order to test the next functionality, which is library cost savings, we needed historical reading data. So we're just generating reading data. That's fake reading data. You can generate it for 1 to 6 years. So we can say bugs.bunny. We're going to generate 3 years of data. They're checking out between 1 and 5 things every month, and we can generate that reading history for them. So, and this takes a little bit. It's just kind of going through and adding stuff that's in their reading history. So this just makes it a whole lot easier for our testers to be able to test functionality and make sure that they can see some of the historical trends. So that's that. It's gonna be boring to watch it run for a few minutes. So let's sign out. It'll do its thing. And I'm gonna sign back in and we can talk more about the library cost savings. So we've added library cost savings. This is development that CLIC, Colorado Library Consortium, sponsored. So what we have now is a new page within your account called Library Savings. This is enabled within library settings. You don't have to enable it. By default, it is turned off. And we'll get cost savings that show in the library savings, checked out materials, and titles on both. So, and this depends on, does patron have reading history on or that kind of thing. So here, let's go to what we have checked out. So here we get information about what we have checked out, and we can see, hey, based off what we have currently checked out, we are saving $56.99 with information that goes into the library savings. These messages, of course, are translatable and that kind of thing. If we go to reading history, it will give us information about, so this says, hey, over the course of forever, I've saved $3,995.46. And this does work for all ILSs. Yes, and generating the reading history would also work for everything. So the library savings page then. So this is a new page, kind of modeled off of reading history, depending on what information you have enabled. So we're going to get the information here because I've got reading history enabled. We're currently saving $56.99. We saved $3,995 historically. So cool information there that matches what was on reading history and checkout page. We also then see a graph by month that shows, hey, apparently I was using the library a lot in April, at least according to the fake data that I generated. And in 2022, a lot of usage again. We also see down below the yearly savings. So this is up to the last 5 years based off the data that we have. So 2021, I used it the most. 2024, I'm getting there. I need to go to the library more this year. So cool functionality built out around that historical data.
But Mark, we got some questions in the chat about
Okay.
this one. So Katie at Wisconsin, she's asking, is it calculating savings with renewals or individual items?
Yeah, let me get into how it calculates all of this. I showed the cool part first, and now I'll show the back end. So
Awesome.
what we're doing in Aspen administration. So there are replacement costs that can be generated now. So again, this is doing the same kind of thing. We're bringing in all of your all of the formats so that we can decide what to do. If you have a replacement cost, so in ILS integration indexing profiles, there is a new field for replacement cost in item information. So if that is set, when something is checked out, Aspen's going to check to say, okay, based off what is actually checked out, what's that true cost, the true replacement cost. It is then adding that to the reading history. The reading history, because it's only recording a title once, if you renew something, it's not going to count over and over and over. Because we didn't think like, hey, if the equivalent is you're going to buy the book, then you're not going to buy the book 6 times, even though you might renew it 6 times. So it's just counting that each item once. And it's really counting each format once. So if you checked out both the ebook and the audiobook and the book, it would count that 3 times. And then just that. So it's by grouped work and format. In order to calculate digital prices, so here we've got the e-audiobook. I picked numbers at random. So I said my replacement cost on an e-audiobook was $17.99, an ebook was $15. And a regular book, I said, was $20. So those are probably completely inaccurate, but they give us a point. So based off of that, if we wanted to, we can say, hey, you know what, $20 for a book is a little bit much. I'm going to change it to where my books average $12.99 now. Now we have the ability, so from here on out, anytime somebody checks a book out, it's going to count it as $12.99 rather than $20. If I wanted to, I can say, no, in reality, that should be, If I want to, I can say, okay, leave all the historical data the same. Everybody that had it checked out at $20 was fine. But for new ones, it'll be $12.99. So maybe next year it's $13.99, $14.99 as inflation goes on. I can also go through and say, you know, the $20 was inaccurate. I want to recalculate all of my cost savings just for the book, or down at the bottom, I can say recalculate for everything. So here we can say recalculate everything. You can also do it for just 0 things. So if you've got some pricing in there, but it's not consistent, or you're adding a new default format, you can recalculate old ones. So here we're going to recalculate this, then we'll recalculate. So I updated 3 savings. And if I go back to my library savings, here we're going to see that instead of my total cost savings has gone down. And then, yes, so there was a question about, is this item type? So it's by item type, so by the format, and it can be either the ILS price or the replacement field. Since it's set by the indexing profile, you choose which one. And then yes, the replacement cost settings are for the entire Aspen instance, and not per library system, just because that would get, by the time we have the reading history information, we don't necessarily know what item was originally checked out and who it belonged to in the past. So we didn't want to mess that up. So any other questions on that?
How about turning it on or off per library and then the ability for patrons to turn it off?
Yeah. Oh, good call. So, so in the library settings, so here I am a Centerville patron, or actually, sorry, it's a, so cost savings. So there is information here for whether it is enabled or not. This is actually enabled on the main instance, but here we can see what the options are. So you can enable it or disable it. It is disabled by default so that you can go through and set all of your replacement costs and that kind of thing to start. There's also 2 messages that you can set up and translate. So there is a message to be displayed at the top of the screen when it is enabled and when it is disabled. Those can be changed. Patrons then can also set from your library settings. So here we can say, hey, don't track my library savings, or do track them. It can be set there, or it can be set within the within your preferences. There is a new option that says display library settings on or off. So if I turn that off here, I can update. Whoop. And oh, that is related to something else. Okay. We'll fix that bug. Here, we'll turn it off here. So here, if we say don't track library savings, that will go away. And there's another little thing there that we'll look into. But then when we turn it back on, it'll come back. All right. Any other questions on that cost savings? We'll move on. Did want to mention that the Koha driver so the part that handles all of the API connections to Koha has been updated. It's been tested and will continue to be tested. But basically it's adding a new wrapper around how the Koha APIs work. There is a potential for things to break. So if you have anything that is kind of a unique Koha setup, we'd suggest testing that as part of the testing that you're doing over the next week and a half or so. All right, Open Archive. So this is functionality contributed by Hal Carnegie. So the idea here is we have archive search. So what it is a new option that allows you to, instead of trying to parse out the date, it's going to just display the date that is included in the archives record. So previously we were trying to convert this into an actual date so we could do stuff like sort by date and that kind of thing. That can still happen, but it can also just display the plain date. So here we're seeing that, hey, they're entering every single date between, in this case, 1940 and 1945. Those can all get parsed nicely here, 2000 to 2012. So we want to preserve that original data. That is set under your Open Archive collections, and then there's a date formatting new option. Let's see more things. Palace Project. had some updates for how Palace project titles get deleted, and then also fixing so the Palace project button wasn't showing for Cloud Library titles. As part of the Polaris user group, we updated. So when a hold is placed, we're going to trigger that to be re-indexed in Polaris, so we get our hold and copy counts to update. Privacy updates. So this is only for libraries that use the cookie consent functionality, which, as far as I know, nobody in the US is using. But if you are, there's some changes. What it's going to do is try to make sure that if a patron has opted out of cookie consent or opted out of analytics tracking, so there is a new option that says, so those information have, so that information has moved to your privacy settings. So here we have the ability to say, are we tracking essential cookies, third-party analytics like Google Analytics or local analytics? If we say, no, we don't want local analytics tracked, or if the patron says, no, I don't want my local analytics tracked, it's going to go through, Aspen's going to go through and clean up old data that says, hey, if I was storing like that, if Aspen was storing that the patron had used Libby or Boundless or Hoopla, then that gets cleared out so that we don't have old historical information about that patron. And then it, of course, if that information is off, it doesn't store that. So more privacy settings that we are good and are required legally in the UK and Europe. The other things, I think that one, so those will get cleaned up by cron. I think that's all I had. Catherine, do you want to talk through the Symphony stuff you did?
Sure. Let me just pull it up. So these are some things that CleveNet needed. And I'll show you the new settings first. They're under the library systems, ILS account integration, and then user profile. If you are using user categories to hold information about notice preferences, you can now, Symphony libraries can put which number user category they're using and then what valid options for that. And that will then show up on the contact information page so that the patron can choose if they want to get their notices by phone instead, or whatever the options that your library uses. And these values are translatable, so you should put whatever value Symphony is expecting, so like be email or be paper, but then on the actual form it can be what the patron is expecting to see. And then the other thing is that some Symphony libraries don't put phone number in the phone field. So CleveNet is using Dayphone, I think, and that was causing this form not to be submittable. So if you try to change the phone number, you just got an error. So there is now a new setting, Symphony default phone field, and Symphony libraries should put in the field they actually use here. And the form will look the same. The patron won't see anything different, but they will be able to change their phone number. So I think that's all I had to say about that.